Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Alabama CPA podcast. I'm your host, Rob Pearson, and I'm pleased to be joined today by a man who literally needs no introduction for most Alabama CPAs, a longtime advisor to the State Society of CPAs and the Department of Revenue on occasion, Bruce Ely. Bruce, thank you for joining us today.
Rob, I'm honored. I mean, you're the big time, man. And you got the microphone that I don't have, so I'm honored to be on the show. And of course, anything to keep Janine happy, we'll do.
And we all appreciate that for sure. Well, first of all, Bruce, what you've meant to this profession is amazing. Gosh, I've been in the profession, I don't know, 25, 30 years, and I've read a lot of Bruce Ely. I've been to CPE with Bruce Ely, and I feel like I know you, and just got to know you during the last year. So,
well, I'm honored. It's been fun to work with you, and you're about to get really busy.
Well, I hope so. It's nothing worse than a dull legislative session. I don't think we'll have one this time. Do you?
No, not this one. Not with all the crap that's hit the fan already, and probably will as they get more revenue estimates finalized on the impact of OB3 or O3B or whatever you call it on Alabama income tax laws.
I kind of think the legislators would prefer a nice, quiet snooze fest, but they're not going to get their wish. To your point, the December abstract numbers are out for the Alabama Department of Revenue. And I was looking at them a little bit today. The individual income tax looks good. And then there's corporate income tax, which not so good.
Wow. Yeah, it's, it was 48, 143 million down, which is about 48% drop. But, a lot of that, and I checked the Department of Revenue on this, a lot of that comes from the fact that some of the juiciest provisions of O3B, accelerated depreciation, R&D, were made retroactive. So, the Democrats in Congress got all upset about that. So they had it scored at a $16 billion revenue loss, just the retroactive feature of those tax benefits. So I think we're getting hit with that wave at the state level, just like everybody else is that has automatic conformity like we do. So maybe it's going to calm down a little bit, and the tide has gone back in the ocean. But man, 48% decrease in 3 months, that's a real shell shocker.
Well, you're exactly right. And I guess 28% drop from December 24 to December 25, which would be the fourth quarter estimates, I guess. And so you definitely saw some drop there. Overall, the numbers coming in, whether they're relevant or not, it's right about break even for this time last year so far through 3 months of the fiscal year, right about break even. And given that with the sales tax drop in groceries and all the things, I think they're somewhat cautiously optimistic. I think ETF is up slightly, but the general fund's down slightly from what I read.
Yeah, it's and we may have a minute to talk about this fight between the cities and counties over the streamlined or simplified sales tax program and how that affects the general fund more than the education trust fund these days, and who's fighting that one too. So it's going to be a real interesting session, and not a time you want to be viewed as a tax raiser if you're up for re-election in November. That's the real kind of sword of Damocles over these folks' heads. That is, there's some things where to preserve some of these business tax benefits from OBA, are we going to have to decouple from some other things, or are we going to adopt the exemptions or deductions for overtime pay and tip income and all those things that are not part of our law right now? But I'm sure the folks who advocate for the overtime comp exemption will probably advocate for conformity with OBA's deduction for overtime pay. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts. I think you're going to be here in the next couple of weeks. I think you're going to be quite busy.
Well, I think you're right, because again, these December abstract numbers are critically important, because the speed in which the legislature wants to move in this session dictates quick reactions to things that you really don't even know what the true impact are going to be. and can't even predict. I mean, the Department of Revenue is not even going to try to predict the cost of some of the provisions that do conform in the state with the federal law. So, we may not know for sure how this is going to impact state budgets for another 6 months,
years
at a minimum, if not years, to your point. But at least in the short term, it's too early in the short term to know through 3 months.
Point well taken. I mean, think about it. I mean, the AEAs, there's some good folks there, but, like a depreciation is a timing issue, but the AEA is going to view that as an immediate hit to the budget. Even though you might depreciate over 5 years rather than one, or 8 years, or R&D, for example, might be 5 years rather than one. But I'm afraid those are the kind of things that are going to be viewed by at least one section of the legislature as being immediate permanent revenue hits. And we've got to explain to them, this is a timing difference, guys. And also, can you look at the economic impact of allowing somebody to build a factory and deduct the entire cost of the factory in 1 year rather than 30? Well, that's economic development. That brings jobs into the state. How do you quantify that? Those are my two dilemmas. And I've never been satisfied with the way we do revenue estimates when it comes to viewing those two factors, the offsetting factors, I call them, because they are difficult to quantify.
From a accountant standpoint, over the years, not being involved in state government exercises, I look at depreciation and think it's just timing. In 5 years, it works itself out, right?
Yeah.
But everything is cash basis in the state. What goes in, everything is. I mean, to the estimates, dates matter, to them, and so it. I like to say sometimes it comes out in the wash, not for them. It is.
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
What did I collect today? And that's the report. Right. So that's why there's somewhat of a disconnect, I think, from what we typically think of to what they're looking at. And so to your point again, 3 months is just not enough time. And as you know, the state, of course, we're going to advocate for as much conformity as we can possibly get with the One Big Beautiful Bill. And every other tax provision that's out there, make it simpler for taxpayers to understand and follow and that sort of thing. So, that's to your point. A lot of states have gone away from that. I don't know how, in an economic development environment, when you're competing with other states, how can you afford not to conform with things like the depreciation?
Yeah. Now, several states have decoupled already from. The most common ones are tip income and OT comp, but also this magic deduction for building manufacturing plants in the United States and deducting that in year 1 versus 30. Several states have decoupled from that one, but so far the states have actually taken up the issue of not decoupled from accelerated depreciation and so forth. But what's happening is a lot of these states that have what's called static conformity, which means we look at the Internal Revenue Code as of December 31, 2024. Well, they're just not doing anything. Or if they don't move forward to July 4 of 2025, they don't pick up any changes in ABA. And that's the polite way to avoid, all these revenue hits. But I counted 10 states, I think, that have either advanced their cross-reference date to pre-July 4 or just haven't done anything. And they may not do anything. And they sit back, like you said, and wait a year and see how all this rolls out before they decide what they want to do.
You worked on the TCJA task force with the state, Bruce. You were very heavily involved in that. And you certainly were involved with the State Department of Revenue and you and Karen Miller and others, with what things conform, what doesn't, what changes maybe need to be addressed in the session. But I want to go back to TCJA. How clear did the future look back then? With all these new tax provisions put in. And I think one thing that stands out to me, not to answer your question, was the impact of reduced federal tax on the deduction for state tax that federal tax represents.
Yeah, I mean, you made that point before, and you're right. I mean, we're the only state left in the world that allows a federal income tax deduction at both the corporate and individual levels. I mean, there may be some legislation to a constitutional amendment that would repeal the FIT deduction for corporations. You may see that this session. But you're right. I mean, the less federal tax you pay, the more Alabama income tax you pay, and vice versa. So there is a direct correlation between the two.
And I think let's talk about that for a second, Bruce. You hit on an interesting topic. If we're the only state in the union that still allows federal tax deduction, but yet let's take the corporate tax rate, for example, is 6.5%. And you compare that corporate tax rate to other states, especially around us, it looks high. Yeah. But then you've got that deduction, and if you were able to sort of reduce corporate tax rate to a certain point, and then eliminate the deduction for federal taxes, so you're not so tied to these provisions all the time, then that helps your state be comparable for a corporate tax rate. And I'd be completely in favor of that. And I know you would be as well, I think.
Yeah, I do. Senator Dan Roberts is going to push that again this session. I mean, the only thing is you've got a constitutional amendment out there. So the people get to vote on that. And you have to be very clear. Look, this is not going to affect your pocketbook. It's going to affect those big corporations. If you can, and that's $1 million advertising, over $1 million of advertising we spent in a CA vote like that. So that's the real rub, is just educating the public so they won't be just paranoid about what this constitutional amendment really does to them. But I agree that I'm supportive of it.
And the theory that it would be a tax reduction for corporations, if you say, well, the tax rate's going down, sure it is, but you're also taking away this deduction. And so the tax is going to be roughly the same, I think, potentially, depending on where it goes. So we'll watch for that. I know you are, and you certainly are up there closer to Dan Roberts' district, and we will see him. He will help. He has agreed to help us on our Pathways to CPA bill. So it really fired up about working with Senator Roberts on that, and he's been a good friend of the society and for tax, reform in this case in the corporate tax world, which I think is very important. So I know you've worked with him on several other things. And we've discussed a few of these. Kind of what tax issues do you think will take center stage besides, I guess, one big beautiful bill? Do you see anything? Again, nobody wants to raise taxes during election year, but there is one thing out there that could absolutely throw this session into chaos, depending on several factors, and that's the simplified seller's use tax.
Oh yeah, it's been kind of, I should say, fun, but it's been interesting to watch because I've known Sonny Brasfield for decades, and Sonny is a worthy opponent. Let me tell you, and he can rally the troops, and he's got the counties and some of the cities all up in arms about how dare Mountain Brook and you rich people in Mountain Brook and Auburn or whatever file suit against. So it's I just like to see the city governments, county governments fight each other. It's a rare moment, but golly, I mean, I'm not surprised. The legislature just wouldn't do anything with the city's bill to raise the rate from 8% to 9.4 or whatever it might be. And again, that's just a level playing field between out-of-state vendors and in-state vendors like Hibbett's or Books A Million, whatever. So I've never been opposed to that, but that's a tax increase. If you're raising somebody's sales tax by 1.4%, well, how dare you? So that's been the problem in the last 4 or 5 or 6 sessions with Chris England's bill to do that. But it may have more traction when the legislature sees that the cities are willing to, put some real effort into getting this whole system at least thrown into chaos for the time being. And it scares me a lot because of just being a constitutional law nut, I guess. But that could be a real mess this session. But I think you're going to see that bill again. And last time it didn't get out of committee. So I don't know, but we'll see if Greg Albritton and Danny Garrett and others are going to maybe take a leadership role. But so far it's been big cities against counties and little cities generally, and Department of Revenue just stuck in the middle. I mean, there are a couple of things Department of Revenue could do a little differently in terms of allowing certain corporations into the fold and not. But I've warned the city attorney for one of the named plaintiffs, say, be careful what you ask for. You may get it. If you do, the whole system collapses. And then all of a sudden, we tax lawyers come in and go, hey, sorry, folks, you violated the Wayfair rule about undue burden, and therefore you can't require sales tax from anybody that doesn't have a physical presence or warehouse, people, whatever, in this state, just like the old days. And that would be catastrophic.
I'm old enough to remember before simple sale use tax came out. It wasn't that long ago. 2015 or so, and
Yeah.
It began as a trickle, and it sort of, all of a sudden the cities and counties and everybody that's receiving this money is like, what do we do with it? And it all goes in the general fund, and you just all of a sudden it's now it's real money. It's for a lot of places. I live in beautiful downtown Demopolis, Alabama. It's 5% of Demopolis' budget, which it becomes a lot of money. And I mean, you're talking about all kind of services being funded with SSUT. A neighboring county, I won't name which one, but they've pledged their sales taxes to their county education, meaning that they are funding 30% of their general fund, which would include sheriff's department and everything. 30% of that simple sale use tax. So when you say that the thing could be blown up, that is a very, very scary proposition. That creates chaos. Sure enough, I mean, when you take away that much revenue from cities and counties who are, have just been the beneficiaries of the current rule, and so, I think hopefully a lot of wisdom and thought will go into whatever happens. But when you've got legislators who are saying at least publicly that, man, I hope this session goes smooth and we get out of there because we've got re-elections to do and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden this jumps up and you've now tied their hands for a period of weeks, because this is not going to be a quick fix, I don't think, unless there are people talking behind the scenes. I don't know anything about it, which is always a possibility.
Well, you hope so.
You hope so.
I see both sides of it. I'm not always anti-city or anti-county in this stretch. I represent brick and mortar stores who'd like to have a level playing field here and charge the same sales tax as Amazon has to charge on their shipments in states. So I see that part, but I'm a simple guy. I like a simple solution. That would make a simple solution. Raise it by 1.5, 1.4, and then figure out how do you want to divvy up that incremental money in a different way, and that should make everybody happy. But we'll see. That may be too simple.
Well, you're basing that rate in city. A lot of people live in county, and so their rate's 7% versus 10 in the city. So anyway, whatever you do, you're affecting everyone that lives in the state of Alabama, and it's not a small issue at all. And it's definitely, depending on how the legislation goes, I mean, they could just kick it back to the legislature and go, it's blown up until you do something about it.
Yeah. Sometimes you don't want a court involved. Sometimes that's not a good thing. And here I'm a tax lawyer saying that. I better be careful. But let's hope cooler heads prevail. And but I like Greg Albritton. Is fun to watch. Well, he's got some moxie about this right now. So you have to make Greg happy, whatever happens.
He's a small town guy. I think he sees it from that point of view, and he's certainly got a little bit of a bully pulpit too, and he's using it, frankly, so, but there are others with the same, a similar opposite reaction to that, I'm sure. So we will see. That's why you have 140 of those guys and girls in there. They'll all get together and sort of figure it out, I hope, and so. Again, it's going to be interesting to watch. You mentioned the word fun sort of jokingly, but it really is going to be interesting how this all gets sorted out. And I wish I had an easy answer for them and I would tell them, but I just don't. I can't figure this one out. So,
I mean, does it cause gambling to come back? to the forefront again. I don't know.
Not this year.
Yeah, probably not this year.
Well, there'd be people that are taking great pleasure in putting folks on the spot during an election year. I guess you got that going on too. So I don't know. Look, Bruce. So a big session coming up. You'll be heavily involved, and you'll be watching things very closely. I'm sure from your perch, and you and I will be in touch a lot. Again, I think that's probably a big issue, unless you think of anything else that you feel like could be a big issue. I know some remote worker. We kind of want to get some of that.
Yeah, that's something your group and my group are interested in getting that cleaned up, and apparently Danny Garrett is too, and God bless him. So I think we'll see a bill here in a couple of weeks. I've seen a technical corrections bill at Senator Roberts floating on ABA conformity, where like the Trump accounts, they don't quite work in Alabama, and educational assistant programs don't quite work. So there's a couple of things we need to clean up that I hope will be not controversial. We can get that slipped through and out of before the battles really start. But again, that's one that I think everybody's already kind of pre-agreed to. So that's great. But hey, we'll see. I think somebody will come in and they're going to go for another deduction for overtime pay. You watch. Anthony Daniels and that group, they've already talked about that. Alabama Rise and some others.
He's mentioned it. I think he was on Capital Journal over the weekend and has mentioned it again. It's certainly the way the federal government did it makes a lot more sense from a fiscal standpoint. However, getting the state of Alabama to conform with that will require some wailing and gnashing of teeth from Department of Revenue and others, I think, especially after the first go around, and the surprise that it was for the cost to the state versus what was
10 times a surprise
was predicted. It certainly our ability to predict those things sort of took a hit, but. You're right. I think somebody will make another run at that, but again, we're in a position right now where it's just difficult to predict what the revenue is going to be like. It's going to be hard for anyone to want to do anything outside the box right now, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And I really, frankly, don't blame them. I just want to give it some time to see how it's going to impact education budgets and the general fund.
Thank the Lord you got $3 billion in the rolling reserve fund. That we may have to tap into that just to keep things from getting crazy in Montgomery. But if you've got a piggy bank over here, take that so you don't have to get into a vote where you call it a tax raiser. Well,
times like these is what that's for. When you got a little bit of uncertainty, it's you don't know how bad it's going to impact the state. You've got some cushion there. So and there've been years. Bruce, you've been around this a long time. There have been years when you didn't have that cushion.
Yeah, now would be the time, in my mind, to avoid, politically, again, as Commissioner Barnett points out, this is an election year. You got to remember that. Above all else, this is an election year. So that'd be a great way I think, to raid the piggy bank, in part anyways, just to keep emotions in check and as you said, give us time to watch this wave of revenue loss and see if it subsides, as we hope it will in a year or two. But that's not the way budget forecasters work.
It is not. Unfortunately, something else working in our favor is Alabama's economy continues to just boil red hot. So we're thankful for that and thankful for the CPAs to help power that growth and the work that they do all over the state. And Bruce, again, can't thank you enough, the foremost expert on all things tax, but sales tax and everything else in between. So again, thank you for your time, Bruce. I have a feeling you and I will be talking again on this podcast as session goes through. Right.
I hope so. Well, it's always fun to work with you, Rob, and it's the CPA Society has got to play a preeminent role this session. I mean, there's only one time we've decoupled from depreciation. That was 2008, and it still ripples through audits. I mean, we can't let that happen. Yep. And y'all are going to take the lead on that, I'm sure.
Bruce, failed to mention you repping Bradley Arant and continued to do great work for the state of Alabama and the state society, and we appreciate you and your team there at Bradley very much.
Our privilege, my friend. I look forward to talking with you in the next probably 24 hours.
Yes, absolutely. Again, Bruce Ely joining us on the Alabama CPA podcast. Again, subscribe wherever you are to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. They will come frequently in the next 2 to 3 months, however long the legislators decide to work. So stay tuned. But again, thank you for your time, Bruce. I'm Rob Pearson. We will be back with you again soon. You've been listening to the Alabama CPA podcast right here on your favorite platform.